We are reading from Study of the Sefirot with Rabash. We'll read from Study of the Sefirot, Volume 1, Part 4. Inner Observation, Chapter 2, Item 21. Before we enter the study together with Rabash, we'll hear Rav about our main topic in the lesson. So we have a few laws here. First of all, there is no light that comes except from Ein Sof. It cannot be any other way. There is no light in some vessel or that it comes in some way, except if it passes through all the previous Partzufim. Even though we can say His glory fills the world, all the vessels are in the light of Ein Sof, and there is no difference between the light that fills them. That's correct, but we're talking about the order of the relation of the lights in the vessels, and the order is always from the refined to the more coarse, and so we always say that everything comes from the Rosh to Galgal, all the Partzufim, even the smallest part. In reality, the light has to pass through all of the branches, let's say, until it reaches that place. That's one. Two, the lights that pass, it's not just that one light passes, but the light that passes has no name, but rather the vessels reveal it. And then it passes from one vessel to another, so that it's not that the light of Chokhmah that now passes from the light of Chokhmah and above. So how does it pass? As the light of Chokhmah or the light of Chasadim? No, it passes as light. It passes as the light of Ein Sof. This is how it also reaches the lower one, who now receives it as the light of Ein Sof, even though before that lower one, you have thousands of Partzufim. That doesn't matter. With respect to him, towards him, it's Ein Sof, because the light that is revealed in each and every degree, the way that the degree discovers it reveals it towards itself, but not the way that it passes and comes down. Let's say the light comes from a certain degree, from one degree to a second degree. I want to make sure we don't get confused, even though verbatim, maybe it's difficult to understand. So the light goes from one degree and it moves on to another degree. As we study, this is the degree of Chokhmah, this is the degree of Binah, and here it's the light of Keter, meaning Ein Sof. So it is Ein Sof everywhere, and this is how it passes. However, here it grows weaker. When it reaches from the degree of Chokhmah to the degree of Binah, it grows weaker according to the level of coarseness that we have here. And it prepares itself for the degree of Binah. But on the degree of Binah, when it receives the light, it receives it as the light of Ein Sof. For her, it is Chokhmah, Binah, everything there is there, it doesn't matter what. If we break down this degree, we must say that there are 10 Sefirot here, and there is Ein Sof before them. Meaning, even though the light passes through all of the degrees, it is not passed from one degree to the next as a specific, special light. Now you might ask, wait a minute, but what happens to us when we speak, let's say, about the four phases of direct light? There, the desire in phase 1 is inverted into the desire in phase 2. It's through the light that fills phase 1. Right? This is why we ended up with phase 2. Well, there's a difference between the construction of the degrees, that they are done by special lights, and the corrections of the degrees, they are done by the light of Chokhmah and the light of Chasadim, and the way is passes through Zivuk Daka, coupling by striking. In coupling by striking, it is passed as light of Ein Sof, but it grows weaker according to the measure of the degree. If I stand in a certain degree, then it comes to me and it's ready for me, but on the measure of Ein Sof. And to prepare me to receive this light of Ein Sof, we get the light of Chokhmah, the light of Chasadim, the light of Absag. Those lights prepare me, they correct me. Meaning, for the correction of the light of the vessels, there are all kinds of lights. But for coupling of striking, the light comes as though I'm standing before Ein Sof. Let's connect together to the lesson. The question comes up. If What we say is that there was first the level of Keter. Now Keter moved on, he departed, and he remained in Chokhmah. Is this how we study or not? Or maybe we say, now a new coupling of striking by striking occurred and he receives a new light. So he says, no, it's a new light. Where does it come from? From the surrounding light. It turns out that what are the benefits by that? By purifying, new lights always come. So how do they come? The light always shines. However, it depends on the measure of his screen. According to the screen, it is considered that he is able to aim in order to bestow, and this is how much he attains. It turns out that each time that he has another overcoming, he receives another light, a different light. What is the benefit by that? That by this, all of the lights are revealed, are received. All of the abundance is received that he needs to receive. This is why I said once, it was yesterday, that a person has ups and downs during the work. We learned that a mitzvah, a commandment, induces a commandment. Why, after an ascent, there is a descent? I once asked. According to what he teaches, every overcoming is considered that a person takes parts of his own benefit and shifts them to be in order to bestow. Well, let's say he shifted one part. If he'll remain in his ascent, it turns out that he doesn't innovate anything. So he's given a descent. What for? So there will be another overcoming, and all of the ascents are registered to his name. Nothing is lost. And so these descents are for the sake of an ascent. What does it mean for the sake of an ascent? It's so that he'll make another overcoming. Every overcoming is considered that he makes a screen, he overcomes his own benefit, and he brings it in to be in order to bestow. Binah, Malchut, this is how he does it. This is called ascents and descents. 21. It has been explained that even though there is a complete level of Rosh Toch Sof in each and every coupling, which emerges during the refinement of the screen, they are still not regarded as direct light, as mercy, but as reflected light and judgment. However, all of this relates to the self of the Partuf in general, suffering from the departure of the lights from inside it. Hence, it pays little regard to the levels that emerge during the refinement and the departure of the light. Nevertheless, or however, considering the values of the levels, meaning as the levels are in and of themselves, we have an inverse relation. Every level that emerges by a coupling which is closer to the emanator is better. This is very perplexing. Again, that is because in phase 4, when they had Te'amim, tastes, only the light of Nefesh emerged. And when it was refined into phase 3, the light of Ruach emerged. And when it is refined into phase 2, the light of Neshama emerged. 22 also. 22. The above matter of inverse relation must be thoroughly and clearly understood, as it is the whole connection and the entire difference between the light and the vessel. Hence, not knowing it will fail us every step of the way throughout the wisdom before us. The thing is that there is a vessel for the reception of the upper light on the part of the direct light, which are the 5 phases Kachab zone, This is what we call vessels, or Naran Chai, which is what we call the lights. And there is a vessel of reception on the part of the reflected light, which give us the level of the degree, which are the levels that are also called Kachab, Zeranpin, and Malchut. They are completely opposite from one another, because the same coupling by which the level of reflected light emerges, meaning the greatest vessel, the phase of Nefesh of direct light emerges too, which is the smallest light. The light of Yechida shines in the vessel of Keter, and the light of Nefesh in the vessel of Malchut. Let's see onwards. What does he want? Let's look further. 23. The origin of these two values has already been explained, because the measure or the value of the four phases of direct light is extended from the light of Ein Sof. The first three phases are still not considered as vessels of reception, as the distinction of the disparity of form is still not apparent in them. The difference between them and the upper light is only in that they, if there is no distinction of disparity of form that is apparent, and they are all the same, why does each one of them has a different name? So you must say that there is something there, some difference, some change there. So he says, the difference between them and the upper light is only in that they cause the cascading of phase 4, which is known to be the phase of absolute reception. It causes less or causes more, but they're all just causes. They are not considered, all of them are not yet considered as light without a vessel, because in the light you have no distinctions, no discernments. Again, he asks and he tells us that there is no distinction of disparity of form until Malchut. Only Malchut was revealed with a new form, a different form. It turns out that they're all a single phase, so why do I give them different names? They should have been called a single phase. But he says that there is a distinction. In what? In which one of them causes phase 4 to emerge more. But besides that, this is why we say Zeranpin is close to Malchut more, or less, Binah is further away, until Keter, which is the farthest away from Malchut, seemingly it has a higher degree. But in and of themselves, they're all the same. They're not regarded as a vessel, but only as a light without a vessel. So there is a rule that there is no attainment in the first 9. We always speak of 10 Sefirot. Remember, we learned yesterday that there are 10 Sefirot only in the Rosh. What is in the Guf? Only Malchut. Malchut of the Rosh, Malchut of the direct light, expanded from it downwards into 10 Sefirot. So what expanded? Malchut. So again, the question comes up, and the answer is not so clear. So below we have 10 Sefirot of vessels or not? If yes, what is the difference between the 10 Sefirot above and the 10 Sefirot below? So he says no, it's only Malchut. So the answer is that in the Rosh we also have no more than Malchut. This means we learn also that there are 10 Sefirot in the Rosh. And here they say, Malchut of the Rosh, when this Malchut emerged, it attained those who cause it, the way it was born. It was born. It turns out that I'm talking about Malchut according to what? According to the way she attains the first 9. Now, the first 9 in and of themselves, what form do they have? We don't know. What do we know? The way she attained that it is so, meaning everything is according to her qualities, what she attained. So that in truly is, it is so, and so they, in and of themselves, who knows? Because he gives us a law that we only speak from Malchut, whatever Malchut attained, that it is so, and they, in and of themselves, we don't know. Meaning we know how they shine in Malchut. What are they in and of themselves, with respect to themselves, we don't know. So it turns out from one side, where do we finally have 10 Sefirot? In the Rosh. When we speak of the Guf, it's the expansion of Malchut. How does it expand? Of the form of the 10 Sefirot that she attained. But we cannot engage in it in and of itself. There's no attainment. But at the Guf, in the Guf, it's only the expansion of the Malchut. I no longer speak of the first 9 according to the differences between them. The differences are only with respect to the cascading. The text, each more refined face is therefore considered greater because it has greater adhesion with the upper light clothed in it. Hence, the Keter, which is the farthest cause from phase 4, is the root of the entire expansion. That's the Keter. And phase 1, which is the nearest cause to phase 4 from Keter, is therefore regarded as a smaller light than Keter. Besides being a consequence and an outcome of the Keter, there is also a fine difference in it from the light that is clothed in it, in that it is a second cause and closer to phase 4. In phase 2, which is the third cause and closer to phase 4, the light clothed there is smaller. And so on. Similarly, finally, phase 4 itself has no light at all because of the disparity of form in it, and on which there was the restriction. All this is known from previous parts. So what is difficult here? Nevertheless, we understand that the light of Yechidah is in the without the vessel of Keter, it's far away from Malchut. The light of Chaya is in the vessel of Chokhmah. The light of Binah in the vessel of Binah. The light of Ruach in the vessel of Zeranpin, and the light of Nefesh in the vessel of Malchut. But when he tells us that it was refined from phase 4 to phase 3, and a greater level emerged, that's what he says. This is very perplexing. Why is it very perplexing? We learned that when there was a coupling on phase, in the light of Keter, the light of Yechidah emerged. Whereas in the Nekudot, the light of Yechidah is no longer in the degree. It's only in Chokhmah, down below. But the Ari says that in every coupling, all the Partzufim became one level. It turns out that all of them have Yechidah of Nefesh, the light of Yechidah. And we said that it isn't so in the Partzuf, in the level of the Nekudot, when 3 emerged. None of them has the light of Yechidah, only in Chokhmah down below. And so I see that in general, there is a smaller degree here. Earlier, there was the light of Yechidah. It's true that Malchut had Nefesh. Now, in Nekudot, we learn that Zeranpin received the Yechidah of Ruach, and the light of Yechidah that was in the Kli in the vessel of Keter departed completely. This is a bit difficult. And furthermore, what's difficult is that we learn that earlier there was a greater degree and then a smaller degree. Te'amim is higher than Nekudot. Here, what does he tell us? That the coupling that was done on phase 4 is a more important degree than the Te'amim. How is that? That's impossible. Why? Rabash, let's start with 24, okay? 24. The difference in values of the above phases, the differences are called by the names Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechidah.
there is a great difference between them, which pertains primarily to the proximity or distance from phase 4, over which there is the force of the restriction. That is one. There is yet another difference between them, that of cause and consequence. Keter is the cause of Chokhmah, Chokhmah of Binah, and so on. And the merit of the cause over its consequence is indeed great in the spirituals, unlike any cause and consequence in spirituality, in corporeality. What does it say here? He already gave us a difference. What is closer to phase 4 is lower and worse. What is farther away from phase 4 is higher in importance. So what does he add here? Here he adds and gives us two reasons why the higher degree, Keter or Chokhmah, is higher than Zeranpin and Malchut. One, from the side of the lower one, from the side of Malchut, the one who is closer to Malchut is worse. Why? Since there was a restriction over Malchut. And in that respect, I need to say that it's worse because it is closer to Malchut. From the other side, it's the opposite. The differences come from the side of the upper one. What is the cause is more important than the consequence. For example, we say, I want to give you an example of how we could speak. If I'll say that the calculation is according to the importance of the cause and consequence, it turns out that in the world of Ein Sof, there Malchut was not lower in importance. I cannot say that what is closer to Malchut is worse. Malchut is also as good as possible. Why? Because the light that fills all of reality is revealed specifically in Malchut. So if I speak about cause and consequence, there too I can say we don't talk like that, but we could talk. Whereas the second reason, which is through the restriction, it became lower in importance, this applies specifically after the restriction. This is why he gives us two concepts with which to understand why Binah is more important than Malchut and Chokhmah is more important than Binah. One reason is from below, and the other reason is from above. He says below, the merit of the cause over its consequence is indeed great in the spirituals, unlike any cause and consequence in corporeality. It is so because here they are all eternal, and all the lights attained by the consequence must pass to it through its cause. Moreover, most of this light that passes remains in the cause, and only a small branch of it is imparted and comes to the resulting lower one, although the light belongs solely to the consequence. But through it, it remained in it, and so it's higher quality. And there are many other discernments too, mostly. Thus, the distance between the cause and its consequence is immeasurably great. Besides all this, there's a great difference between these four phases, according to the kind of light in the essence. Even though the upper light is entirely even. How do I say? According to the kind of light in the essence. There are no discernments in it, only in the vessels. There is a matter of a correlation here between the upper light and the phase of direct light in which it is clothed. For example, thus the light of Chaya is the self. The light of Neshama is primarily light of Chasadim. And he gives us other introductions and discernments to know what we have in the four phases of direct light. Even though we do not discern the light,
he makes a discernment only in the vessels, but there's a relationship here. What does it mean, a relationship here? As much as the vessel is impressed by the light, here the vessel of Chokhmah is impressed because it's receiving Chokhmah from it. And here, the vessel is impressed when it receives Chasadim, meaning the discernment is in the light, the discernment is in the vessel. So from what? If the vessel is impressed, that is the difference. So from this point of view, the light of Chokhmah is more important than Chasadim. Chasadim is less important than Chokhmah. And he explains this to us in the preface, that the Chokhmah is the light of the purpose of creation, whereas the light of Chasadim is only the light of adhesion, the light of correction of creation. Certainly the goal is more important than the means. That's why he makes a few ramifications about the difference between the four phases of direct light.
Why is it called upper light and this one is called direct light?
He says, even though the upper light is entirely even, there's a matter of a correlation here between the upper light that acquires some change. When I say about in the phase of direct light in which it is clothed inside the reason, the cause. The upper light is abstract. I'm not talking about a relationship with the vessel. When I'm saying direct light, I mean it's clothed in the reflected light. It's clothed in the vessel. In that case, when I say direct light, it means the expansion of the Ein Sof. It's called direct light, to make vessels. I already have a calculation how the Sefirah is impressed by the upper light. This is called direct light. The upper light itself is called abstract, no vessels, nothing. And without vessels, it's one light. Direct light already means that it's clothed in the Sefirah. There's an impression, a relationship between the light and the vessel. The vessel is impressed by the light. Therefore, every Rosh is called Ein Sof. Why? Because there's no one to restrict it, no one to attain it. In that case, there's the light in and of itself. The light in and of itself is without discernment. So we finished here. We have to start item 25. Know that all the above mentioned values in the four phases of direct light, meaning anyone who's farther from Malchut is more refined, is better. Whereas if it's closer to Malchut, it's less important. What is farther from Malchut is more important. This is one thing. We learned, additionally, we learned that there's a matter of cause and consequence, since Chokhmah is the consequence of Keter. Keter is more important than Chokhmah. Zeir Anpin is a consequence of Bina. Bina is more important than Chokhmah. That we say, know that all the above mentioned values in the four phases of direct light are extended so from Ein Sof, since they come to shine from the restriction down. Also, all the above discernments apply to the 10 Sefirot of circles as well, since they come this way from Ein Sof before they enter into the coupling by striking and the clothing of the reflected light. You already know that the whole difference between the 10 Sefirot of circles and the 10 Sefirot of straightness, of lines, is only with regard to the coupling by striking, which does not apply to the circles. What does it say here, and why is it so difficult, perplexing? He says, many values in Ein Sof, and necessarily after the restriction, certainly, the changes that you have there. But do we discern anything? Here, you discern the changes. Where? After the restriction. Both in the lines and in the circles. And all the difference between straightness and circles is that in the circles there's no coupling and striking, and in the straightness there is coupling and striking. Meaning, which circles? Anything that was before the restriction remains down below, meaning the light departed. But the vessels that were there will remain. You find since the coupling of striking did not take place, you cannot say that you have a coupling of striking left over in the circles. It wasn't there as well. How is it perplexing? We explained there that the circles are called circles, which are lower in importance. The Malchut is not considered lower in importance, because there it's called Ein Sof. The Malchut does not make the Ein Sof. It doesn't make an ending. In that case, with respect to the cause and consequence, it's something realistic, where the consequence is more. The reason, the cause is more important than the consequence, especially in spirituality, it says. So it could be circles, it could be the lower in importance, if there's change anywhere in every cause and consequence. But what's closer to Malchut is less important. Above Malchut, not so important. Why? If Malchut itself is called Chisaron, a deficiency. What it says in item 23 above, it says. So what does it say here? Each more refined phase is therefore considered greater because it has greater adhesion with the upper light clothed in it. Hence Keta, which is the farthest cause from phase 4, is the root of the entire expansion. And phase 1, which is the nearest cause to phase 4, from Keta, is regarded as a smaller light than Keta. You can say this. When I say that, Malchut is called a vessel with a changed form. So we have discernments, but when we speak about the world of Ein Sof, that Malchut doesn't make an ending. There was not the matter of equivalence of form that we learned. There was no Osh and no Sof. In that case, how can we say that what's closer to Malchut is lower in importance compared to what's farther from the Malchut, more distant from it? You can only say that what was there, the order of the upper first 9, they're considered the cause of the vessel, and that was there as well. And since after the restriction the vessel is considered lower in importance, then after the restriction we should make these discernments, but not as prior to the restriction. Cause and consequence existed also before the restriction. You have to say that the 4 phases of direct light, one is the cause of the other. Therefore, I will learn that everything that he says is a result of that, but not that they are the same discernments that the discernment that's closer to Malchut is considered lower than it is distant than Malchut. But the order that was there from the point of view of the making of the vessels, and the vessel is considered now after the restriction as a lower in importance. So I'm saying these changes are extended from there, from the time of the making of the vessel, even though that there was one discernment, there was no Osh, no Sof, but now after the restriction, we feel it inside the disparity of form, one from the other. So I'll learn about it, meaning after the restriction. What does it say? No, that all the above mentioned values in the 4 phases of direct light are extended so from Ein Sof, since they come to shine from the restriction down. Then you can make out all the discernments. Also, all the above discernments apply to the 10 Sefirot of circles as well, since they come this way from Ein Sof, before they enter into the coupling by striking and the clothing of the reflected light. I can say that if still there's no lower in importance, we cannot say that there's change. By what? By being closer to Malchut and more distant from Malchut. The first part of the cause and consequence, I can't talk about it in the circles. But here he says it in the circles. What does he say? How can he say it? Circles meaning there's no lower in importance. How can he say closer to Malchut or more distant from the Malchut? You asked me about this point as one who tries to measure it, as a measurement, where this point has no measurement of equivalence of disparity of form. It's a little difficult. Let's see what's next. So let's summarize. What does he say? That 2 discernments are in the straightness and in the circles. The difference between the circles and straightness is that in circles, there's no coupling and striking. 3 means it's called only what's left from the world of restriction. In the world of restriction, there was no coupling and striking. What is coupling and striking? The desire to receive makes a screen, calculates how much it can receive in order to bestow and how much it cannot. This whole thing was not there yet. Later, when we stand after the restriction, you have the vessels of the light departed from them because of the restriction, and the Reshimot, the records, remain in the vessels. So he teaches that Malchut of circles that did not want to receive as a choice, not because of prohibition, she went and drew the light back into it in order to receive it, in order to bestow. They say what the desire in the upper one becomes a law, a necessary law in the lower one. Therefore, once it drew it, she couldn't have received it. It's forbidden. This is called lower in importance. This is called above and below. So there's a difference. Malchut is called lower in importance, since that which is closer to Malchut is called below, and that which is more distant from Malchut is called above. It turns out that after the restriction, there's no light but the light of the line. What is the light of the line? The light where you cannot receive it in a vessel of reception. You only learn that the light is extended inside a thin line. What does it mean, thin line? Until it comes to Malchut. Malchut is called coarse, and the line is called thin. So he says, what is this corporeal allegory, a thin line? We have no idea about the line. That there can be nothing in the middle, the thickness in the middle, a millimeter. If there is a line, I see it, and there's the weight or the thickness of the line as well. So if it's thin, I don't see any coarseness. I cannot see up, down. There's no coarseness. There's no thickness or width. This is the corporeal depiction. That's why he says he drew the light. There's already lower in importance, but you can attain the thin line. You don't see it. There's no coarseness. Why is there no coarseness? The coarseness is in Malchut. Malchut is a prohibition to receive it. Who attains it? But later, when Malchut makes a screen and raises a reflected light, what is a screen? It thinks, makes a calculation how much it can use the vessel of reception called coarseness. So there's already coarseness there. So the line acquired some. This is how we attain the line, meaning the line that comes from the discernment of from above down by the screen and is used with the coarseness, then you can attain it and see it. It turns out the difference between circles and the lines after the restriction, the line gives her coupling and striking, and this is a new thing. The circles are called what's left before the restriction. Before the restriction, there was no screen, no reflected light. And that's why he says this is only the difference between circles and lines and straightness.
Friends, we apologize for the quality of the recording and the speed. In the original recording, there is some malfunction there. Rabash was actually speaking slowly. It sounded slower than normal. Today we tried to accelerate it, but it turned out to be too quick. We're aware of it. We'll take care of it in the future lessons. In the meantime, let's nevertheless share our impressions from the lesson, what we heard, what we were